welcome you to this edition of D2 Tuesday. Victor Anderson sounding 100% and feeling 150% after the exciting weekend we had in Division 2. Coming up on today's show, we will look at some of the marquee series that took place last weekend and how those results impacted the latest NFCA Top 25 that came out just a couple hours ago. Plus, we have an announcement about our D2 Day podcast coming up on Thursday and a guest that we already have lined up for you for that special day. We'll talk about that on today's edition of D2 Tuesday. Make sure you follow In the Circle on your favorite podcasting platform. Make sure you subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Of course, rate us and review us 5 stars. Wherever we listen to In the Circle, we rate us 4 stars. We tend to believe that you are a hater. The big series that came down this weekend was in the Lone Star Conference between number 3 West Texas A&M and number 6 Texas Tyler. Now, we highlighted a series last week on D2 Tuesday. What we didn't get a chance to mention because it was released after our episode came out, that not only was it a battle between 2 top 6 opponents, but it was a battle between the reigning NFCA hitter and pitcher of the week. Diana Murtha was the hitter of the week for West Texas A&M. She had 778 a couple of weeks ago, 3 doubles, a triple, 2 home runs, and 7 RBIs as they were able to have a dominant weekend, did the Lady Buffs. Murtha went 2 for 2 with a home run, 3 RBIs versus CSU Pueblo, and then went 3 for 3 with 2 RBIs and 3 runs scored in that performance. Crimson Bryant for Texas Tyler was the NFCA National Pitcher of the Week after she twirled a pair of complete game shutouts with 7 strikeouts in each outing and issued just 2 walks and 5 hits during those 14 innings. She blanked Northeastern State while allowing 1 hit over 5 innings and then allowed only 4 hits in a beating of her then number 13 ranked Southern Arkansas. In 24 of 25 innings, she has not allowed a run in the first 25 innings of her collegiate career, and it's not allowed a run, and I struck out 24. Now, that was coming into last weekend's series, so you can understand why the excitement was high in Canyon, Texas. West Texas A&M were able to get themselves the victory in Game 1 of the doubleheader by the score of 4-3. It was a back-and-forth contest. It was very exciting. Heidi Fortrums from West Texas A&M was able to stem an early rally from Texas Tyler. Texas Tyler actually took the early 1-0 lead in the 5th inning, but Fortrums picked up a strikeout to keep the Patriots to just the 1 run. West Texas A&M responded with a pair of runs in their inning as a wild pitch, and after a wild pitch that scored a run, Brittany Rufus hit a 3-1 pitch, doubling off the left field wall to score 2 and give the Lady Buffs the lead. Texas Tyler tied the game in the 7th inning, and then an inside the park home run gave the Patriots a 3-2 lead, and then that set the stage for West Texas A&M. In the bottom of the 7th inning, after a pair of singles put runners at first and second, a wild pitch moved the runners in scoring position. Lauren Granger came to the plate, singled up the middle to score the game-tying run, and then an error on the center fielder allowed Liz Kai to come around to score the game-winning run and give West Texas A&M the first game by the score of 4-3. Game 2 was another back-and-forth battle. West Texas A&M fell behind 1-0. They came back with 2 in the bottom of the first to take the lead 2-1. Texas Tyler got a run back at the top of the second. West Texas A&M then got 2 runs in the third to take a 4-2 lead, got 2 more in the fifth to make it a 6-2 lead. Texas Tyler got 3 runs across in the top of the sixth and had a chance to add an additional run to tie up the game, but they left that runner stranded. Then West Texas A&M got a run back in the bottom of the sixth to give themselves a run of insurance, make it a 7-6 game. And then they got a big ground out with the tying run at the plate in the top of the 7th to give West Texas A&M the victory 7-5 to clinch the series. Then on Sunday, it was another dramatic contest. This time it was West Texas A&M that struck the game's first blow on a 1-0 lead. They would remain 1-0 until the top of the fifth, where Texas Tyler then picked up 3 runs in the top of the fifth inning to take the 3-1 lead. The Lady Buffs scratched a run across at the bottom of the fifth to make it 3-2, and then came down the bottom of the seventh inning. West Texas A&M got themselves a base runner to start off the inning with Granger with a walk. Rufus and Emily Boyer got back-to-back singles to load the bases with nobody out. And then that's where things get interesting. They got a walk to load the bases to tie the game up. And then Johnson once again lifted the first pitch of her at bat to right field that scored Brittany Rufus and give West Texas A&M a 4-3 walk-off victory. Their second walk-off in the series versus Texas Tyler. The sweep marks the first time that West Texas has swept Texas Tyler since they were in Lone Star Conference play, and the first time the Patriots have been swept since March 6th of 2020. So it's been a long time since the Patriots could say that they got swept in Lone Star Conference play. West Texas A&M finds themselves 11-1 on the season, winners of 7 in a row, and now they will go on the road. They'll take on UT Permian Basin on Saturday the 24th and Sunday the 25th in Odessa, Texas. That'll be the first of a back-to-back road stretch in Lone Star Conference play. They'll go to Midwestern State Tuesday-Wednesday series in Wichita Falls before they return back to Canyon to take on Texas Women's for a 3-game series March 2nd, March the 3rd. But I want you to keep this date in mind, ladies and gentlemen. March 8th and March 9th, the Lady Buffs go on the road to take on Oklahoma Christian, the Eagles, which have been a program who has started to make some noise in the Lone Star Conference. I'm looking forward to seeing how that series will play itself out, especially with everybody playing a 3-game series against every member of the Lone Star Conference. And remember, in the Lone Star Conference, only the top 8 teams make the conference tournament, and the regular season champion, or was the number 1 seed, they will get the rights to host said conference tournament. And this is why it's so important for Texas A&M to win that series with that doubleheader sweep that he had on Saturday. It's because they get the head-to-head over Texas Tyler. The Patriots, on the other hand, they find themselves 8-4. The Patriots have had a brutal schedule to start the season. They took on number 17 Wingate as part of the First Pitch Invitational. They took on Missouri Southern, Southern Arkansas, go at West Texas A&M, and it doesn't get any easier for them. They go to Cameron next. That'll be a series that's going on right now. We'll talk about that on our next edition of D2 Tuesday. Hey, we may talk about it a little bit on our D2 Tuesday, D2 Day special on Thursday. And then they host Angelo State. So opportunities for the Patriots to kind of ride the ship early on. Again, when you're dealing with a top 6 opponent in your conference opener, such is life in the Lone Star Conference. Now we go to, as David Bennett says, M-I, cricket letter I, cricket letter I, hump your back, I. That's Mississippi. And of course, talking about Mississippi College, and as they started Go South play against Alabama Huntsville. The Choctaws and the Chargers, another top 25 matchup in conference play. And this is one of those matchups that when I looked at it last week on D2 Tuesday, it was one of those matchups I felt that it was going to go down to the final pitch, and I'm not really surprised that it went down the way it did. All 3 games were decided in the final at bat. Alabama Huntsville took the first game in a wild affair, 9-8, and I'm very impressed with how both teams battled. It kind of like Texas Tyler and West Texas A&M. It was a back-and-forth ball game. Alabama Huntsville took the early lead at the top of the first. The Choctaws got 2 runs in the first to take the lead back, made it 3-1 after 2. Alabama Huntsville retook the lead in the top of the third, only for Mississippi College to get 2 runs back to make it 5-4. Then Alabama Huntsville put up a 4 spot in the top of the fifth to take a 8-5 lead. Back came Mississippi College. They got to run back, and they actually tied it up at 8-8. Alabama Huntsville retook the lead in the eighth inning, and the Choctaws were not able to pull off another comeback as they fell in extra innings 9-8 in game one of that series. And it was really a series that was back and forth, and it was an exciting game to watch. And you're intrigued to see how things play themselves out. McCall Lee had the 3-run home run to tie things up at 8-8, but Alabama Huntsville got themselves a run to take the lead back, and the Lady Choctaws were not able to get themselves that critical run to salvage game one of that series. But we go back to Sunday, a Sunday in which you want to late inning dramatics, folks, you got late inning dramatics, as it was the day of the walk-off. And for one lady in particular who did the damage for Mississippi College, and that was in the form of Shelby Samples. She hit a 2-run home run in game one of the doubleheader, game two of the series, in the 11th inning to give Mississippi College an 8-6 walk-off victory to even up the series versus Alabama Huntsville. And then in game three, once again, it came down to the final innings, and it was Samples once again who did the damage for Mississippi College as she got themselves, she got an RBI single to center field to give Mississippi College the 4-3 win to get the series victory and beat Alabama Huntsville. And I'll tell you this right now, ladies and gentlemen, I would not mind personally, and again, we're about a month into the season, if Alabama Huntsville and Mississippi College ended up facing each other in super regionals, I'll take 3 more games of what we saw last weekend in Clinton, Mississippi. Please and thank you. Now with the victory, Mississippi College is a 10-1 on the season. They're off to their best start as a Division II program in history. And for Mississippi College, you look at their schedule. They get Auburn Montgomery next on the road. They got a non-conference doubleheader versus Arkansas Monticello. Then they get a week off. And they take on Ottawa Baptist on March the 5th. They go back to Gulf South play that following weekend, next weekend, as they host West Florida. It'll be a nice stretch at home for head coach Brooke O'Hare and company. Oh, by the way, Mississippi College fans, y'all might want to stay tuned to our social media because let's just say we may have a conversation with Coach O'Hare in the upcoming days ahead. So be on the lookout for that. Now, be on the lookout for the Sunshine State Conference, the conference who had a representative go to the D2 Women's College World Series last year, and Nova Southeastern, who had a bit of a had a very exciting doubleheader versus East Stroudsburg. We highlighted that a little bit last weekend in our D2 Tuesday, and they got themselves back on the right side of things. They opened up their conference season with the sweep versus Eckerd. Tampa swept their way through the opening weekend of the conference as they took care of business versus Lynn, and St. Leo went to Winter Park with Mother Nature dealing with that situation, and they swept Christine Rosa Lefevre and her Rollins College Tars. So look at the conference: Nova Southeastern, Tampa, St. Leo. They are each 3-0 on the season in the conference play. Embry-Riddle 2-1, Florida Southern 2-1, Florida Tech and Berry, they are all 1-2. Palm Beach Atlantic had the bye week in conference play. They will start conference play at St. Leo, and then they host Tampa and Florida Tech. Those are the first 3 conference series for Palm Beach Atlantic. And when you look at the conference, you look at with Nova Southeastern and Tampa and St. Leo, there's always that one team that kind of sneaks around and kind of surprises people. It would not surprise me in the slightest if that team is Embry-Riddle, 2-1 on the season. And Embry-Riddle, they will have a chance to make a statement in conference play themselves, as Embry-Riddle will take on Rollins this weekend in conference play, Ecker will take on Lynn. Florida Tech will take on Nova Southeastern. And we mentioned Palm Beach Atlantic going to St. Leo. Berry will travel to Lakeland to take on Florida Southern. Tampa will have the bye week in conference play. They will have a non-conference doubleheader versus Bridgeport. That will be on Saturday, the 24th. The league this year, in the terms of the Sunshine State Conference, this feels like you got Nova Southeastern, Tampa, and St. Leo. Those are the three. Who's going to jump up to be that fourth team? Again, they're just a week into conference play. So I'm not going to jump and make any early conclusions or assumptions. Whichever team can jump into that number 4 spot will have to jockey with a Valdosta State, with an Auburn Montgomery, with the West Alabama, who's ranked at the highest in program history. We'll talk about the NFCA rankings in just a moment. This might be one of those seasons where if you're not in the top 3 of either the Gulf South or the Sunshine State Conference, you're going to be battling for just one position. Because remember, in the South region, the SIAC champion, that's the college of the historically black colleges and universities, they will get a bid because their champion will likely finish outside of the top 10 in the regional rankings. So, presuming the Gulf South gets 3, and we know the Sunshine State Conference will get 3, you're going to have 5 or 6 teams, maybe 7 teams jockey for one position or one spot in that South Regional tournament. You heard my interview that I had earlier this year with Nova Southeastern head coach Julie Lemaire. Those early season tournaments, the Charge and Chill Out, the Gulf Shores Invitational, those results that happen in February can go a long way in determining who gets in and who doesn't get in when Selection Monday rolls around. So we will be fascinated to see how all that shakes itself out. And before we get to our top, and before we get to the latest, and before we get into the latest top 25 rankings, I do have an announcement to make, so if you can hit the music, please. We will have yet another top 10 coach blessing us with their presence on D2 Tuesday, which will be taking place on Thursday. The head coach of the number 10 East Super Regional champion Wilmington Wildcats will be joining us on Thursday. Mike Shehorn will be joining me to talk about the Wildcats off to a 1-0 start after knocking off Division I and in-state foe Delaware State last weekend. We will talk to Coach Shehorn about that and the Wildcats going into 2024. That's coming up on our D2 Day edition of D2 Tuesday, which will be on a Thursday. Hope all of that made sense for you. We will recap it at the end of the show. But let's get to the latest NFCA Top 25 poll that came out a couple hours ago. No real surprise, North Georgia remains the unanimous number 1 team in all of the land. The Nighthawks took care of business this past weekend at the Leadout Classic. They went 4-1. They beat UNC Pembroke, Lake Erie, and Lenore-Rhine. Lenore-Rhine knocked off North Georgia during that tournament to knock the Nighthawks from the ranks of the unbeaten. Staying at number 2, moving up one spot, is West Texas A&M. You heard our thoughts about what the Lady Buffs did against Texas Tyler, sweeping them in their Lone Star Conference opener. Moving up to number 3, the Tampa Spartans. Tampa moving up to number 3, sweeping Lynn to start Sunshine State Conference play. Cal State San Marcos and Steph Ewing took 3 out of 4 from St. Lucia State in their CCAA opener, so they each move up a spot. And rounding out the top 5, Deanna Callahan and Grand Valley State, the Lakers, split their opening weekend of games that took place in Tennessee as part of that tournament hosted by Lincoln Memorial. 6 through 10 looks like this. Mississippi College and Brooke O'Hare moves up to number 6 after their series victory versus Alabama Huntsville. Rogers State, who, by the way, 2 years ago won the national championship. They moved up to number 7. The Hillcats went 3-1 at the Raising Cane's Invitational, hosted by Central Oklahoma. Wonder if they got any chicken strips and garlic bread or garlic toast over there. They knocked out Southeastern Oklahoma State, Southwestern Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma Baptist. Their lone loss to Southern Arkansas, who moved up to the rankings. We will talk about Jason Anderson's outfit shortly. Texas Tyler, who was in the rankings in the top 5, they fell down to number 8. U of Indy is now at number 9, and Wilmington, who knocked off Delaware State, they will be at number 10. If you missed our announcement a little earlier, Coach Mike Shehorn will be joining our podcast on our D2 day that will be coming up. 11 through 20 looks like this. Colorado Christian moves up 3 spots from 14 to 11. Central Oklahoma, the Bronchos, fell 1 spot to number 12. West Alabama holds steady at number 13. That is the highest ranking for West Alabama in program history. Don't worry, we will talk a little bit more about West Alabama coming up on a D2 day special. Wingate moves up 2 spots from 16 to 14. Nova Southeastern holds steady at number 15 after their Sunshine State Conference sweep of Eckerd. Western Washington moves up 2 spots to number 16. They are 11-0 on the season. East Stroudsburg falls 5 spots from 12 to 17. The Gorillas of Pittsburgh State, in spite of not playing, they fall 1 spot from 17 to 18. Michelle Frew and Charleston, the Golden Eagles, move up from 20 to 19. St. Leo and Aaron Kimberger, they move us a spot to number 20 after their conference sweep of Rollins. Southern Arkansas, number 21, after being at number 23. Angelo State, the Rambles, move up to the top 25 for the first time this year. They're cracking number 22. And you knew it would be a while before Krista Rosenthal and company will be back in the rankings. After a couple weeks out, they're back in at number 23. Northwest Nazarene is at 24. And rounding out the top 25, cracking the poll for the first time this year, is Lenore Ryan, fresh out their victory over the defending national champions on the road in Georgia. Adelphi, who was off to a rough start, but if you look at their schedule, you can understand why. Oklahoma Christian and Alabama Huntsville all out of the top 25. Adelphi is still receiving votes. They're ranked number 26, quote unquote, with 16 votes. And then you have Washburn, Texas A&M, Kingsville, the Javelinos, who are making a strong push so far this season. Cal State, Dominguez Hills, and Alabama Huntsville, these 6 programs receiving votes in the NFCA Top 25 poll. Polls come out, of course, every Tuesday at 12 noon, and we will highlight the polls on the back end of our D2 Tuesday. Some notable milestones we want to highlight before we sign off here. A shout out on the tip of the cap to Lakin Maxwell from Anderson, who is the school's all-time leader in strikeouts. She picked up 468 so far. So, Lakin, congratulations to you on your milestone at Anderson Softball and a phenomenal work that you have done so far. So, she'll be closing in on 500 strikeouts for her career. That will be taking place within the next couple of weeks. And that's going to put a bow on our D2 Tuesday for this week. That's the first of 2 D2 Tuesdays that you will be hearing this week on our YouTube channel. We will have a D2 day edition of the show. So that's 2/22. So that's going to be a Thursday. And the episode will be released at the very unconventional but kind of proper time of 2:22 p.m. on 2/22/24. We already announced that Mike Shehorn, the head coach of the now number 10 Wilmington Wildcats, will be joining me on D2 Day to talk about his program and their run they made last year, an historic run for Wilmington. We're also working on a couple other things as well. Follow us on the Inner Circle social media accounts to see what those plans will be for coming. So to make sure to look out for that. And we have already reached out. I already have some plans to get other coaches on the show. So just stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who asked about U of Indy, they are on the list. St. Leo, they are on the list. We have some other teams that we've reached out to earlier in the season that have not gotten back to us. So we may double back to try and reach out to them. We have some new teams that we may be reaching out to. Hello, West Alabama. We're looking specifically at you. We also have some returning guests back on D2 Tuesday throughout the year as we really get in depth into conference play for the Division II side. And one other thing that we're going to do as well, starting in March, D2 Tuesday has been more of an audio form. But we're going to try and switch and kind of do a video podcast. So you'll see my face. You'll see me talk about the top 25, talk about some of the marquee matchups that took place the previous weekend, and coaching interviews as well. Because that's what I want to do for all of our D2 people. They deserve the great coverage like our Division I counterparts do. Y'all deserve that. It is my mission and my objective to make sure that I give that to you right here on D2 Tuesday. But again, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first of 2 editions of D2 Tuesday. We will have a special D2 Tuesday showcasing Division II Day that will be on 2/22, and we will have some fun things lined up for you on that particular episode. But that's going to wrap up this edition of D2 Tuesday. Make sure you follow In the Circle on social media. Don't forget to catch our latest episode on the Division I side. We recap a rain-filled and run-filled Clearwater Invitational, plus my travels to Leesburg, Florida, and some other news and notes around the Division I side. So that's all for the In the Circle podcast. I will talk to y'all on Thursday. Twice you'll hear from me on Thursday. I'm Victor Anderson. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, there are more of us than there are of them. This has been D2 Tuesday. Top podcaster out. Good night, Canada.